Are you ready for this review? I've been stalked like it's an Olympic sport. Communicate, okay? Just speak to each other. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Alex and today we're doing something really exciting, and that is we are going to be recapping everything that happens in this book called Daybreak by Autumn Woods. And I picked up this beautiful edition, which is the exclusive The Works edition that came out on Monday with these beautiful sprayed edges. I am this far along in the book. I'm basically going to be recapping everything that happens in this book for those of you guys who have read book number 1, Nightshade, but you're not too keen to read book 2, or you're busy and you don't want to read book 2 but you still want to know the tea and know what happens. And when I say I'm going to be recapping everything, I do not mean every single thing, okay? Your girl, me, is employed, so I don't have the time to be making 4-5 hour YouTube recaps. And if I was a full-time creator, I would 100% be doing this, but unfortunately I am not. I'm gonna be trying to give you guys as much of a recap as possible on the main things that go down in this book. Now I'm currently on chapter 13. As you can see, this is how far along I am in the book, and I've been taking notes for every single chapter on what has been happening and whose POV we're in, because this is a dual POV book. We follow both Ophelia and Alex. I'm gonna be relying on this brain who did a biomedical science degree and had to remember a lot of chemical reactions to remember what I read 2 days ago, and based on these brief notes be able to paint a picture for you guys on what actually happens in this book. Also, by the way, this is my AC unit in the back. It's currently 30 degrees in London and there's no way I'm going to be filming this for an hour without AC assistance, so hopefully it doesn't bother you guys that it's in the back. I can't make it go away, unfortunately, and I hope you can't hear it because I'm using this beautiful mic. If you're watching this, I am assuming that you've read Nightshade, which is book 1 in the series, because I'm not going to be recapping what happens in that book. But if you enjoy these kinds of videos, do let me know, please. Don't forget to comment below because it really helps me out. It helps a lot of more people discover my channel, and it also gives me an idea of the sort of stuff you guys enjoy watching so that I can make more of. We're testing out whether or not I like doing these recaps, so I don't know if more are coming, but we'll see. You will just have to wait and see. So let's get straight into it. Now the book starts with an epilogue, which is from the perspective of Anonymous. We don't know who Anonymous is, but we're assuming they are the second stalker that popped up at the end of Nightshade, if you've read that book. And they are basically insinuating that they've had help to figure out whatever Ophelia was in book 1, because the stalking was quite intense. Also, this stalker has a picture of Ophelia and Alex killing Dr. Bancroft, who was one of her professors and ended up being stalker number 1 in Nightshade. So we learn a little bit about the stalker and their perspective, but also we are left with like a lot more questions. So chapter 1 is an Alex POV, and the book opens a month after the events of the ending of Nightshade. Alex is now back in New York. He is the CEO of Green Aviation, which is a company that his father owns, and he has to act as the CEO. He has to go like into the office every day and basically replace his father, because his father went missing at the end of Nightshade. Once Ophelia's article was leaked and his family was sort of like thrown into the press, the father went in hiding, went missing. We don't know where he is. Also, I have some notes here, that's why I'm continuously looking up, because this is the stuff I wrote down while I was reading the book. We also get a look into Alex's life at home. He's looking after his 6 sisters and his mother, so we see them more like at home. We learn about their interactions. We know that the older sister is like a bit upset and is a bit lashing out because of the drama that the family's receiving in the press. And also we know that Alex is feeling a lot of pressure. He's looking after his sisters, he's now running this company, and he's only like 23 years old. He also feels like quite lonely. He and Ophelia haven't spoken in a month since he left. He hasn't been in touch with her and we don't really know why. Now chapter 2 is also an Alex POV, and the chapters at the beginning of this book are so much longer than the chapters like in the middle where I'm currently reading. The first few chapters are genuinely so long. In this chapter, the only 2 things you should know is that Alex is having a conversation with Rocco, and he is Vincenzo's father, so he's like a mafia boss of sorts, and he has been working with Alex's father Kane to do a lot of suspicious things regarding planes, and whenever Rocco, for example, has an enemy, he'll use the green planes to take them down or make them disappear. Rocco is invited to the office where Alex is now taking over from his father, and Alex is basically putting his foot down and saying that there's not going to be any more shady business involving their helicopters. Rocco's obviously not happy about this because they've had this collaboration this entire time, but Alex ends up purchasing this technology security company that has a lot of records on Rocco's illegal activities, and because of that he's threatening to publicize a lot of Rocco's illegal activities to encourage him to basically put an end to the collaboration that Rocco and Kane have been having, and he eventually agrees even though he's not entirely like happy about it. Alex is having a conversation with his therapist, which I love that Alex has a therapist in this book. I don't know if they're necessarily like the best therapist model out there, but it's definitely useful because his mental health is definitely not doing well. There's a lot of thoughts of depression and also suicidal thoughts in this book, so that comes up quite a lot, which I think there were also elements of this in the first book, Nightshade. So Alex is talking to his therapist is like on holiday and is like, I will be picking up our sessions when I return. Now, chapter 3 is the first Ophelia POV. Now, Ophelia is also dealing with the aftermath of the article that was leaked at the end of Nightshade. She's getting bullied online because a lot of people took Alex's side in this scandal and are blaming her for leaking this article, even though she wrote it, but she wasn't the one who leaked it. It was her stalker. It's really, really sad to see because she goes through so much in Nightshade, and to then see her go through even worse things. There's a lot of elements of like online bullying and also like in-person bullying. People are genuinely mean to her face. She also now has a new stalker, which is sending her pictures and also is aware that her and Alex killed someone and is kind of holding that above her head. Also, she's being actively stalked around campus. This stalker will like take pictures of her while she's like walking from one place to another. But Ophelia's doing a really good job, I think, in my opinion, healing, and she's allowing her friends that she made in book 1 sort of like come together for her and support her and be there for her, which is really nice to see because in Nightshade she was such a loner and she was really struggling with like the abandonment issues of losing her parents so abruptly and unexpectedly, and now we're seeing her letting people in and sort of like slowly healing. I do think both her and Alex have a long way to go because they both have their own issues, which will come up throughout the book more and more, but it's nice to see that she has that community to support her as she's dealing through the heartbreak, the stalking, and the online bullying, which is honestly like an insane combination. Ophelia also gets a call from a detective. Alex has 2 private detectives, Brandon and Mac, and they're both in charge of finding his father, because the sooner he can find his father, the sooner his father can be put into jail and he can feel like him and his family have freedom from this evil man. So one of these detectives, Mac, reaches out to Ophelia and basically asks if she has been contacted by anyone since the article has been leaked at the end of Nightshade, and she ends up being quite open and honest with him, telling this detective about the stalking. And she's also getting more messages as she's like walking alone in the forest from the stalker. So we know that the stalker is on campus. We just don't know who they are and what they want from Ophelia, because at the end of Nightshade the stalker basically said, if you give yourself to me, if you like bring yourself to me, which I don't know how you do that, but that's what the stalker wants, then I will sort of like leave Alex alone. And it seems like that's exactly what the stalker wants, but Ophelia's not really engaging with them. She's not replying to the messages. Chapter 4 is another Alex POV. Alex talks to his private investigators, and that's how he learns that Ophelia has a new stalker, because they don't speak. And also we learn that Alex has been advised by his lawyers to not be in contact with Ophelia after the article was leaked. Now, this seems a bit of an excuse to me personally, but this is kind of what we're told, that he didn't reach out to her because he was told to cut contact with her. His phone number was leaked and he ended up changing it. We're given a bit of an explanation of why the breakup was so abrupt, but also Alex decides to travel to the UK under the disguise of attending an aviation conference and goes from London, drives all the way up to Scotland to visit Ophelia for the first time. But obviously she doesn't know he's coming because they can't be like shown to have a digital footprint or a digital connection. Chapter 5 opens with Ophelia's POV, and Alex and Ophelia are reunited is a really nice scene where they meet along this like pathway. Obviously she's not aware that he's coming, so she's like a bit taken by surprise, and initially she's like really angry and really upset, and she's like very much does not want to speak to him. In this book so far, something that I appreciated was that Ophelia's finally opening up to her friends. She tells them everything that happened in Nightshade, and also the fact that she has a stalker, so everyone's kind of like on the same page. We're learning from the mistakes in book number 1, which is that we shouldn't be hiding things from people that we're close to, and like opening up to people gives you that community, and everyone is in on finding this stalker. Alex and Ophelia, when they're reunited, Alex convinces Ophelia to go on a ride with him. So they're driving, it's like raining out, it's a very like moody scene, but basically what happens is they both agree they can't be together. It's more Ophelia pushing this because she's really upset and she feels really abandoned by what happened at the end of Nightshade. She feels like Alex promised her a lot of things and then abandoned her, even though he knew that she, you know, has been abandoned in the past, even though it was unintentional by her parents dying. So she's quite furious, and it's very much painted like this is only Alex's fault. He's the one that left and didn't give her a chance to explain why the article was written in the first place. But I think, in my opinion, they're like both at fault. It's not just Alex's fault, but it's kind of like painted like this is 100% Alex's fault. Ophelia wants to basically officially break up and end things because they can't do long distance. She can't fly to New York because she's scared of planes, and also she feels like she can't trust him, which are, you know, good enough basis for breaking up. The chapter ends and they both agree this is their official breakup that they should have had a month ago. But also what happens in chapter 6 is that Alex and Vincenzo meet for the first time since he's been back in the UK and in Scotland, and Vincenzo's the one that convinces Alex to basically fight for Ophelia. He's very much resigned after his conversation with her, and he tries to like respect her wishes and not pursue her or try and convince her that they are really good together. But Vincenzo's the one that comes back and is like, no, you have to fight for her, like you fight for everything in your life, you have to fight for this girl, like you guys are meant to be. And that's what sort of like brings Alex back around, and he finally decides to not give up on their relationship. Also, Vincenzo tells Alex that in 2 days times there's gonna be a winter ball at the university and that he should attend and like surprise her and try and convince her that they should stay together. So chapter 7 opens up and this is an Ophelia POV, and she is hanging out with her friends. They're all getting ready for this ball, and she is wearing this green dress. So this is where the scene on the cover takes place. Ophelia is wearing this green dress and Alex is wearing this like black suit. She is dressed up in this beautiful dress and shows up at the dance, and she's obviously taken by surprise the fact that Alex is also there. Also, they're receiving a lot of attention from everyone around. Like, everyone has been following the story online, everyone has been like basically bullying Ophelia online for betraying Alex, and also people are bullying her like in person for betraying Alex. When they see them together dancing on the dance floor, a lot of people start taking pictures, which really triggers Ophelia, and she ends up like running outside. She runs outside and it's raining. She's in the rain. Alex is obviously chasing her, and they're both out in the rain, and that's when like they end up kissing and like doing some other things. Then they end up both walking back to Ophelia's room. Now, while they're in the room, it seems like they're making some progress, they're potentially getting back together, but then Ophelia gets a text message from her stalker telling her that she's not going to get her happy ending, and also that Ophelia wouldn't want something to happen to Alex's plane when he's flying back to New York the next day. And they attach a picture of like the airport showing like a green aviation plane. Now, this is obviously very scary for her. She lost her parents in an airplane crash, so for potentially for Alex to also be at risk is what really sort of like cools her down, and she asks him to leave so that he can be basically protected. She doesn't tell him about the text messages, which I've found so frustrating, because it's like, you learn from book 1, just like communicate, okay, just speak to each other and life would be so much easier. But she doesn't tell him. She does call the private detectives Mac and Brendan and tells them, and they're able to figure out that the image from the airport is actually just an image from the internet, and they are able to trace the text messages to the university, right? So the stalker is on campus, and these pictures are being taken on campus and sent to Ophelia's phone on campus from a potential burner phone. Now, chapter 8 is Alex's POV. It feels a little bit like there's a lot of filler chapters in this book, if that makes sense, because Alex and Ophelia can't be physically together, and there's a lot of chapters where they just take a lot of calls. So I think in this chapter Alex takes a call with the detectives to update them if they found his father or if they found the person who leaked the article. And one of the private detectives end up figuring out that the person who leaked the article is a really famous hacker, and she's a woman. And this hacker, he knows this hacker personally because they went to university together. And this hacker lady is the person who usually takes jobs for women that are underrepresented, if that makes sense. So she does the hacking for like women's justice. So because of this, we are assuming now that Ophelia's stalker is a woman. Alex has a call with Ophelia and is texting back and forth with Vincenzo. So like I said, this feels a bit like a filler chapter. We're just taking calls back and forth. Alex is also at work doing a lot of like virtual meetings with a lot of people. So it wasn't the most engaging thing I've ever read. It did start losing me a little bit at this point. Hopefully we're gonna like be picking up a bit more in the next chapter. So chapter 9 is an Ophelia POV. Ophelia gets another text from her stalker. She's in a lecture taking notes on her laptop, which was gifted to her by Alex in Nightshade. The text says something along the lines of like, are you using the laptop that was sent to you by like your rich boyfriend? So it definitely has an undertone of jealousy, which Ophelia picks up, and it makes her then question if the stalker is someone who is jealous of her relationship with Alex, or jealous of her, or jealous of Alex, and if it could potentially also be a woman. In this chapter, Colette, which is one of Ophelia's friends, proposes that they go on a trip to London, a girls' trip. Colette's gonna be like booking a hotel for all of them, and her driver is going to be taking them down to London for a few days to basically get out of this like depressive state that they're all in because of the stalker and everything that's happening. Like I said, it still feels like a lot of this book is happening online. We have comments from people online, we have bullying online, we have a lot of news articles coming up. The stalker's messages are obviously on the phone. There's a lot of like video calls that Ophelia's taking with these private detectives. Point, it does feel like there's very little action in the real world, but I think that's just the nature of the like having everyone be long distance, because you have Alex in one place, then you have the private detectives in one place, then you have Ophelia in one place. So there's a lot of different locations that we're going back and forth. In chapter 10, Colette and Ophelia are in London for their girls' trip. They're staying in this really fancy hotel, and they get drunk and basically decide to sign up Ophelia for a life drawing class. Now, if you don't know what life drawing is, I've been to a few life drawing classes in London, so it feels like a very London thing. You have like a circle of people, and then you have a real person in the middle who most of the time is naked, and everyone around them in the circle is sketching them and doing different like sketches of them in different positions. It sounds weird at first, but trust me, it's like very empowering. Like, I ended up going and I loved it the 2 times I went. I think Ophelia's starting to believe a lot of these like online comments she's getting, being telling her that she's like bland and boring, doesn't look really good. I think she's getting like trashed online, and she starts to believe all of these things about herself. So Colette is the one that comes up with the idea of signing up for life drawing that is gonna like build her confidence back up and, you know, make her feel good about herself. So they end up signing up while drunk to fill in for someone who dropped out for a class the next day. There's still very little communication between like Alex and Ophelia. They've definitely been texting since the events of the ball, but I think she's kind of like pulling back from him again. She's the one that kind of like proposes for them to do a no strings attached arrangement, which is crazy because they had like such a strong connection in the previous book. They're definitely not communicating at all, even though I think to me they're like in a long distance relationship, and I think that's the most important thing you should be doing when you're in a long distance relationship, communicating. But it seems for some reason they're communicating less than they should. Also, this like pattern of like should we not be together is just getting a bit old at this point. I'm kind of getting like a bit tired of reading about them, Alex chasing her, and she's the one that like keeps breaking up and keeps rejecting him and keeps ending things and keeps coming up with reasons why they shouldn't be together. And I understand like her trust was broken at the end of Nightshade when he left. I think she should also take a bit of responsibilities of like her abandonment issues and the fact that she's struggling to trust people, and like kind of work on that together rather than just like being stuck in this loop of like Alex chasing her and her rejecting him. And it feels like the same mistakes are kind of like being repeated over and over again. In chapter 11, we have an Alex POV, and Alex is learning from Vincenzo, and Vincenzo's been hooking up with Colette this whole time. Alex learns from Vincenzo that Colette and Ophelia are in London and they've signed up for a life drawing class. He also visits his mom, which is in an inpatient care that she's getting treated at. So it seems like his mom is like on a little bit of a lighter path. She seems to be getting treated for her condition, so we're getting like a little bit of lightness, but there's always like more drama and more issues popping up in this story. Unfortunately, our characters cannot catch a break. What ends up happening is Alex ends up buying all of the tickets for the life drawing class that Ophelia has signed up for, and also he books an overnight flight to London to be able to make it for the next evening. They're also texting back and forth, and Ophelia is very much like, we are doomed. That's kind of like the line that she's going through. She basically shows like little growth at this point, and I did say like at the beginning of the book I felt like she showed a lot of growth, and I feel like here we're taking a step back again. It feels like she's kind of given up on the relationship with Alex, and he's the only one kind of like fighting for her. Chapter 12 opens and it's an Ophelia POV. Ophelia and Colette are at breakfast the next day. They're very hungover. They get a text from the person who's organizing this life drawing class. They're basically like, thank you so much for signing up, and Colette and Ophelia are like, what do you mean, what did we sign up for? Because neither of them can remember what they've done the night before. And when they realize that Ophelia has signed up for this life drawing, she starts freaking out. She tries to call this organizer and be like, can I get out of this? Like, I don't want to do this. And the organizer's like, no, unfortunately you have to do it because it's a fully booked class, right? So Ophelia basically joins the studio, takes her clothes off, gets naked, you know, gets up on the stage and is waiting, but there's like no one there. Chapter 13 starts and we have another Ophelia POV. She's kind of waiting for the 8 attendees that should be attending this class, but there's like obviously no one there, and all of a sudden she hears a door open and someone comes in, and it's Alex. Now Alex is again on the line of trying to convince her to give their relationship another try, even though it will be long distance. She finally gives in, which feels like we're finally making some progress. So they're technically back together and they end up sleeping together for the first time. Alex also does something really sweet, which is like he makes 8 drawings of her, because there were supposed to be 8 people at this class, and each of the drawings is from a different memory that they have together. So it's not necessarily about her in the present. For example, there's one of her like holding a cup of noodles in the rental car that they rented at the previous Christmas in book 1. So he's trying to basically reassure her that they can make it, that a lot of his memories are like imprinted into his brain and they can still be together even though it will be long distance, and then they can like fix everything else together. That's how far along I've read in the book, and I'm glad I'm filming this recap while it's all like fresh in my brain. I'm gonna get back to you guys maybe today or tomorrow once I make a little bit more progress. Hope that gave you guys a bit of an overview on what's been going down in this book. Sometimes I enjoy watching these videos so I don't have to read an entire book if I'm not 100% dedicated to the plot. Let me know if you're enjoying the video so far. If you're watching at this point, please put down a blue heart emoji to match this beautiful cover, and yeah, I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, you guys, so it's a day later. I've got my matcha here, which doesn't look very strong, but I swear I put so much powder in, and I finished the book. I thought it was amazing. I gave it 5 stars. I loved the way the story ended. I think it was executed perfectly, and I'm back to tell you guys how the story continues because I am just so excited to talk about this book. And I've just uploaded my reading vlog where I go and find a special edition and I read it with you guys, so please do check that out in case you want to support me, because it helps me out, especially if you guys like and comment. That really tells the algorithm that you like my videos, and then more people get to see them. So let's get straight into it. Now, chapter 14, it's an Alex POV, and basically Alex and Ophelia are leaving the studio where they did the life drawing class, and they both decide to buy pizzas and go to a house that Kane, Alex's father, owns in Kensington, which is a neighborhood in London. Now they both settle into this mansion. Apparently it has a lot of rooms, so they just go to the room that like Alex normally sleeps in, and they both end up falling asleep. Now Alex wakes up in the middle of the night and has like a weird feeling, so he calls his like older sister Fleur to check on the family, make sure like everything's all right with them, and then he goes downstairs to like get a drink of water or something like that. So he's sitting at the sink like in front of this massive window, and then a brick flies through the window and sets off the alarm system in the house. And then Alex sees this figure dressed in like all black running away, and he starts chasing them, but sadly they get away, and he just notices that they dropped a glove. This is very, very mystery detective inspired, okay? Ophelia's woken up by the alarm which is going on in the house, and once they turn off the alarm, both Ophelia and Alex realize that the size of the glove is really small. It would only fit a woman's hand. And this is again another clue that our stalker could potentially be a woman, which is kind of what we've been led to believe so far in the story. Okay, this is where the action starts and it does not stop until the end of the book. Chapter 15 is Ophelia's POV. She's back as Sorrowsong and is walking alone in the forest with a knife. I didn't really understand why, but apparently this is just how she operates nowadays. And honestly, if I was being stalked, I would be operating the exact same way, because there's no way I'm going anywhere without a knife, okay? She hears some ruffling in the woods behind her, and at this point she's sick and tired. Ophelia's I've been stalked like it's an Olympic sport, and this is actually a quote from the book, which is truly iconic. So she kind of turns around and she's ready to confront her stalker. She realizes there's no one there, but she does get a message on her phone that says, "Tag your turn." And she sees a dark figure in the woods, among the trees, running away, right? Ophelia's really frustrated and she's ready to start running after this stalker. But then she hears 2 gunshots, and then a strange man comes out of the woods and is shooting at the stalker. And this turns out to be one of Vincenzo's men, who's supposed to follow Ophelia everywhere and kind of protect her. So he's been following Ophelia without Ophelia realizing. Ophelia starts texting the stalker back for the first time in this book, and she's "I'm ready to meet in person, tell me when and where, let's meet and get this over with," because she's sick and tired, okay? The stalker gives her a pin for an address to meet her the next morning. Ophelia is unsure who to tell, and she decides to call Belladonna, which is Vincenzo's sister, and she is also part of the swimming team with Ophelia, if you guys remember from book 1. Belladonna's "This is a really stupid idea, but I'm gonna come with you because I don't want you to get murdered, because I really care for Alex and he's gonna be devastated if you end up getting killed by the stalker." Belladonna and Ophelia wake up the next morning at 4 a.m. and start driving to this location, and you can feel the anticipation and the fear through the pages. I think the author did a fantastic job describing this scene from Ophelia's POV, because you can I was reading this and I was I feels I'm going to meet the stalker. She's done such a fantastic job describing this. Now they arrive to this location, which is obviously in the middle of nowhere, in a secluded area surrounded by woods. And when they get there, they realize there is a silver car parked just in the middle of nowhere. So Ophelia gets out of the car with her knife and she goes up to the car, and she realizes this is a really worn down car. And when she looks inside, she sees that there is full of trash. It seems like someone has been living in this car for a very long time, which is interesting. And she also notes down the license plate of the car, and she calls Brandon, who is one of Alex's private detectives, and ask him to do a check on this license plate to figure out who owns this car. What I found frustrating at this point is that Ophelia's in her head and she's trying to figure out who this stalker could be. We've had so many hints that this stalker is a woman, yet the only guesses that Ophelia has are Carmichael, which is the school head teacher. Then she thinks it could be Sean that she went on a date with at the beginning of book 1, or it could be Kane, which is Alex's father. And I'm none of these. Oh, wait. And I'm wait a minute, none of these people are women. So why are we not putting 2 and 2 together? Chapter 16 opens up and Ophelia's by the silver car, and she realizes that the pin that the stalker dropped is actually further ahead into the woods. So she starts walking into the woods. Now it's 5 a.m. in the UK. If you're not from the UK, I can tell you in April, 5 a.m. it's pitch dark. It might as well just be the middle of the night, okay? There's no sun, there's no light. So she starts walking into this woods, and apparently she goes in so deep that she's just surrounded by darkness and she doesn't actually realize where she is anymore. Now Brandon, the detective, is still on the phone, and he's hey, I actually was able to track who this car belonged to, and it belongs to, are you ready for this reveal? Okay, this is one of the biggest reveals in the book. Okay, this is what we've been working towards. Okay, this car belongs to someone called Laura. Now, if you guys don't remember who Laura is, she was a bit of a side character in book 1, okay? But we don't have time to go into explanations because Ophelia gets tackled by someone, and she realizes as she's fighting this person who's potentially the stalker that they are a very frail and small person. This whole time, Stalker number 2 has been Laura. Now, Laura, if you guys don't remember from book 1, she was the daughter of a man who was killed at the same time as Ophelia's parents in the helicopter crash. And she had a tape from her father where he basically confessed to all of Cain's crimes, and she borrowed that tape to Ophelia for Ophelia to use it as evidence to take down Green Aviation. And then Ophelia ended up keeping the tape for a little bit, and then she returned it to Laura's house. Laura ends up at this point, while they're tackling each other in the woods, ends up confessing to everything, and she says that basically she feels like she's been forgotten, that she trusted Ophelia to take the evidence, to take the tape that her father left behind and use it as evidence to take down this family, and Ophelia didn't do that. Ophelia fell in love with Alex and completely gave up on the revenge plot. Laura has used all the money that she had. She sold her house to basically hire a hacker to then release the evidence and basically finish the job for Ophelia because she couldn't finish it anymore. And she's been like holding this grudge and this revenge, and she's been trying to tear them apart this entire time. You can tell she's not doing well physically. She's like really skinny. She's obviously been living in her car, which is what we learned like in the chapter before. Belladonna comes out of the car when she hears like them fighting each other in the woods and ends up shooting Laura, and then she ends up passing away. And it's like a very emotional scene because Ophelia's feeling a lot of guilt. She feels like she let down Laura. She feels like she forgot about her. She sees herself a lot in Laura. She feels like if she would have never met Alex, she would have been Laura. She didn't want for Laura to die, but while Laura's dying, she's basically holding her hand and like apologizing, which is really emotional. Now, chapter 17 opens up. Apparently, Laura has been dealt with. Vincenzo and Belladonna's men have gotten rid of the body, and Ophelia's back at her parents' house for the first time in this book. She's dealing with the aftermath of killing Laura, feeling quite guilty for abandoning Laura, and thinks she's kind of like shutting everyone out. She's not replying to anyone's messages. She's not calling anyone back. Alex ends up flying over to her parents' house to be there for her and to support her as she's dealing with all of this. Now they're back together officially, but they're going to be doing long distance. There's also a notification that Alex gets at the end of this chapter that says that Cain has been seen in New York around their family home. We sort of just like ended one part of the plot and we're jumping straight into trying to figure out where Alex's father is. Chapter 18 opens up. This is Alex's POV. It feels a little bit like a filler chapter as well. So Alex is having a session with his therapist, which are obviously over the phone or virtual. He's finally like telling his therapist, or his therapist telling him that he's depressed and that his relationship won't fix his depression, which is exactly what I've been thinking this entire book, because to me it's obvious that both Ophelia and Alex are very depressed and dealing with so many things mental health wise. A lot of their relationship, especially in this book, was painted as if they are together and they're happy in a relationship, like that will make all of their mental health issues go away. I think especially Alex has been like clinging on to this throughout the whole book, and to see the therapist finally say what I've been thinking this entire time, and that is that being in a relationship is not going to cure your depression. So that was quite like refreshing. Like I said, I feel like I've had a lot of complaints about the first half of the book, and then it feels like a lot of this other half of the book is kind of going through and like fixing all of those complaints and addressing them. And I think I find it a bit frustrating at this point. I don't know if this is because I'm someone who goes to therapy, but if it doesn't feel like Alex is making the most out of these therapy sessions with his therapist, it doesn't actually feel like he wants to get better and he's trying to actively like improve his life. Sometimes it feels like he's just going through the motions and going through these calls because he has to. But he also is texting with Ophelia, and then he also has a conversation with his mom about his mom potentially meeting Ophelia in the future. And then Alex also has a phone call with Carmichael. This is the school's like the Sorrowsong University like head teacher. We haven't heard about this man in this entire book. I actually hate when authors do this. You have someone be such an important character in book 1 and then they just like disappear in book number 2. But this man is coming back, and he's basically offering Alex to continue his architecture degree at Sorrowsong University. He's telling him, hey, for the first time in years, Sorrowsong's gonna be doing an architecture program, and it's already like gaining quite a lot of traction. But Alex is like shutting it down. He's like, I don't have time for this. I need to be in New York. Cool, so we're at chapter 19. Ophelia's walking around campus the next day and she notices people looking at her funny, and at this point our girl just can't catch a break. So she's like, oh, what is it this time around? Like, oh, what happened? why are people looking at me funny? And one of her friends ends up showing her an article saying that Elise, which is Alex's mom, she's really struggling with like a lot of mental health problems, and she ended up collapsing in front of their mansion in New York City and has been like hospitalized. Obviously everyone's panicking because Alex has been really scared this entire book that something will happen to his mother. She's struggling with mental health problem and she's on a lot of drugs which could impact her heart, her health like overall. So Vincenzo, Belladonna, Jack, which is one of Alex's friends from the university, and Ophelia jump on a private plane and fly to New York. Now, Ophelia has been scared of flying her whole entire life. A big part of this chapter focuses on her overcoming her fear of flying for Alex. So that's what I mean when I say in this part of the book, we're really seeing Ophelia step up, because the first half of the book, it was Alex sort of chasing her, doing so much for her, trying to convince her that they deserve another chance. And I think in this part of the book, you really see Ophelia step up, which is exactly what I wanted to see, because I was getting a bit tired of her just like not pulling her weight, if that makes sense, in this relationship. So she gets over her fear of flying and she flies over to New York. Now chapter 20 opens and we are at the hospital. Vincenzo and Belladonna are heading to the house to help look after Alex's sisters, and Ophelia goes into the hospital to look for Alex. They have a really sweet reunion in the hospital. Alex is like so exhausted. He's been there with his mom this whole time, so he almost thinks like he's making Ophelia up. He can't believe that she's actually there. Ophelia ends up meeting Elise. They have this like beautiful conversation and this beautiful talk, and they talk about like clothes and fashion and about Alex. She learned something really sweet, which is that after Alex met Ophelia, he started sketching in color. He likes to sketch a lot, and he has like a sketchbook, which we saw in literally the first chapter in his car. He used to just do sketches in like black and white, and now he's been sketching in color, which is really cute. And yeah, that's a small detail to the relationship that I really love. Chapter 21, this is Ophelia's POV. Ophelia's in a car and she's being driven to Alex's home in New York, where all of his sisters live, and she's met at the door by like the housekeeper, which she's really nice, taking a nap because she's so tired after this like really long flight. Ophelia is woken up by like a knock on the door, and it's Mia, one of Alex's sisters, and she ends up meeting all of the sisters and having dinner with them, which goes really nice, and it's very wholesome. And then she wakes up a bit later after falling asleep again, and Ophelia realizes that Alex is home and he's just like on the bench outside in the garden, and they have some toast and like end up going to bed, which is really sweet. I think the author did a really good job at like making all of these mundane activities seem really wholesome, especially when like all the sisters are involved. I feel like there's so many sisters that at some points it's hard to keep up of like who's who, because there's 6 of them, and I think there's not enough time on the page given to each of them for them to have like individual personalities, so that you like know and distinguish them and know who they are as people. But I think they're also really young, so I think they're just like kids in the background, but it's really sweet whenever they're like in a scene. Then we have chapter 22, which is an Alex POV. It's Alex's birthday. He wakes up and Ophelia's trying to make him a drink and some food, and it doesn't go as planned because the drink ends up being really gross, and she ends up also burning the steak. So it's a funny situation, the fact that she's trying to cook for him, which is something he really enjoys but she's really bad at. Josie, which is one of Alex's youngest sisters, gives Ophelia a drawing that says like welcome to our family, and it's a drawing of them, obviously done by like a kid, but it's like really sweet, and I think like Ophelia feels really touched by this. And then Alex has a conversation with his mom, who has been now discharged and is back at the house feeling a bit better about potentially going back and studying architecture, which was his dream before this whole thing blew up in their faces, and before he had to quit his degree at Yale and move to Sorrowsong. Now chapter 23 is another Alex POV. Alex and Ophelia discuss her going back to Scotland, because at this point she has been in New York for like over a week, and they're doing this over the phone because Alex is at the office. It's about 7 p.m. and Ophelia's just calling to be like, hey, when are you gonna be home? And Alex is working on trying to figure out who the next CEO will be that will take over from him, because this was never his like long-term goal, trying to decide between 2 people called Mike and Lewis. Now Mike, he said he's not very sure of, and he's more leaning towards having Lewis be the new CEO. Now Alex heads to the elevator, he's ready to leave the office, and as he's in the elevator he runs into Mike, and he realizes Mike, he's not acting the way he normally does. And what Alex realizes is that Mike presses the button for the 6th floor. Now the 6th floor is just like a storage floor. It's not a part of the office. It's a floor that only like the cleaners go on and stuff like that. And as he's pressing the button for the 6th floor, Mike attacks Alex. And that's when Alex realizes something is like really wrong. Mike is kind of throwing it in his face, being like, you were never gonna pick me as CEO. And he seems to also be like on drugs or drunk or something like that. The doors open to the 6th floor, and that's when we are met by the second villain in this book, and that is Kane, Alex's father. Okay, he's in the office building on the 6th floor, and he could have potentially been hiding out there this entire time. So we've been looking for Kane this entire book, and he was just like on the top floor of the office of the company that he owns. Chapter 24 opens, and it's Ophelia's POV. She's in a car with Fleur. I hope I'm saying that right. She's in the car with Fleur, which is Alex's oldest sister. I think she's 17, and they're heading to the office. They're being driven by one of like Alex's security men because it's 9 p.m. It's 2 hours past the time they spoke on the phone, and they're both worried that something happened to Alex because he should have been home by now. Ophelia decides to go into the office building on her own, so Fleur and the security guy end up staying in the car, and she heads into the office and she realizes there's no one here. There's supposed to be a security guy, there's supposed to be a receptionist, like there's no one here. And at the same time she realizes that the elevator is stuck on the 6th floor, so there's like a light flashing indicating that the doors are not closing and the elevator can't be like asked to come back down, if that makes sense. So Ophelia ends up taking the stairs, and once she gets to the 6th floor, she realizes there's a blood trail on the floor, and there's Alex's phone just broken on the floor. She follows the trail of blood into this like office room in the back, and she looks through it and realizes Alex's father is there, basically beating Alex up, and also Mike is there, who's the guy that helped like kidnap Alex. From the conversation that we're overhearing, we can tell that Kane is asking Alex to approve a plane so that he can leave the United States and fly to like Greece. Ophelia makes up a plan, and she decides to distract Mike. So she makes a noise down the hall, which causes Mike to come out of the conference room to try and figure out what the noise is. They are thinking it could be like a cleaning person that is up here. And when Mike passes Ophelia, she's like in this hiding spot, and she pops out and hits him over the head with a crowbar that she found in like one of the storage cupboards. And then she ends up like running away and hiding again. So Kane hears all of this, and he comes out of the office, but he can't see Ophelia anywhere because she's hiding. This is like the top floor is dark, you know, this is not a normal office space. So Ophelia comes out of her hiding space, and she runs back to where Alex is being tied to a chair, and she unties him, basically is trying to get him up and free him, and they both make it to the elevator. But that's when Kane comes out, and he's holding a gun to both of them. Kane recognizes Ophelia as the daughter of the two people that he killed in the helicopter crash, and he's points the gun at her and tries to shoot her, but Alex gets in front of it, and he's like, there's no way you're shooting her. And we have this like standoff, and at this point I wasn't sure if someone was gonna get shot because Kane is clearly unhinged. Alex is not in his best shape. He's been like beaten for the past 2 hours, and Ophelia and Alex have nothing to protect themselves with. And then we hear a gunshot, and Kane drops to the floor. They both look behind Kane, and they realize Fleur is holding a gun. Also, while all of this was going down, Ophelia ended up texting 911 to the security guy that was downstairs with Fleur in the car. So they saw the text and came up, and Fleur ended up shooting her father. Now chapter 25 opens, and it's an Alex POV. He wakes up in the hospital, and he's a bit confused at first. He's like feeling all bruised up, but then all of the memories start coming back to him. His sister Fleur is there, and they have like a really nice conversation about their childhood and how Fleur was just like sick and tired of their father treating them terribly. Vincenzo also calls, and he's like panicking and freaking out. Ophelia comes in, and she just has like a bruised knee, or something's wrong with her knee, but otherwise she's fine. And they both reassure each other that like everything's gonna be fine. We have chapter 26, which is an Ophelia POV. Ophelia flies back to Scotland alone after spending another week with Alex. So at this point she's been in New York for like 2-3 weeks maybe. She makes a friend on the plane, which is this like older lady, and they talk about her fear of flying, and this old lady shares that her daughter passed away and she's been like all on her own, so they end up like really bonding and exchanging exchanging phone numbers. And also when she gets to the airport in Scotland, all of her friends are waiting for her with like balloons to congratulate her on flying successfully for the first time. Then we have chapter 27, which is Alex POV, and Alex is doing a presentation to basically convince his sisters to move to Edinburgh. We're finally seeing some movement in the direction of Alex and Ophelia being together. I feel like one thing I didn't like about this book is like how they're separated for basically the entirety of the book. They're long distance, which I would have just loved to see them be together physically in the same place like they were in book 1, because I thought that was so sweet. Yeah, we're finally at chapter 27 making discussions and arrangements for them to finally potentially be in the same place again. They all agree to move to Edinburgh, including Alex's mom. I think they all need a fresh start. They just don't want to continue living in the same house. And also Alex visits Kane in prison, where they have this like closure conversation. I think Kane kind of apologizes, but like kind of not. He just sort of leaves, and then Alex calls Carmichael to discuss his offer to study back at Sorrowsong Architecture. Chapter 28 is a month later after the events, which have been like crazy. We have an Ophelia POV. She is heading for a swim. She opens these articles and finds out that Lewis has been made the new CEO of Green Aviation and Alex has stepped down. Ophelia's like swimming in the Tarn, which is where she first swam when she came to this university, in like the open water. She has this like beautiful conversation with her parents. It's the first time that she's like directly addressing them, and she's telling them about all the things that happened in the events of book 1 and 2, and it feels like a really nice closure conversation. You can tell she's coming more to terms with the fact that her parents are gone and they can't be there for her, and she's trying to let go of some of that guilt of like living her life even though the parents are not there anymore. And once she finishes swimming, Alex gives her a call and tells her that they have been approved to buy a house in Scotland. So she's so excited. She can't believe this is happening. Alex has been keeping a lot of this to himself because he didn't want to get her hopes up and then end up being rejected. Elise, which is Alex's mom, also texts Ophelia and reassures her that like they all need this fresh start. They're not just all uprooting their lives to be near her. And then chapter 29 is 6 weeks later. So we did a month jump and now we're jumping forward another 6 weeks. It's a full year from the events of book 1. So book 1 and book 2, they all take place within 1 year. Alex is returning to Sorrowsong and driving 3 hours from their new home, which is somewhere in Scotland. He walks in while Ophelia is in the pool at the university swimming. He tells her that he'll be studying here for the next 2 years, so they'll both be finishing their degrees at the same time, and that he was also able to get them a shared room in the Nightshade mansion, so they're gonna be like living together for the next 2 years and studying together. It's really cute. Ophelia is like in the pool as he's telling her the news, and she ends up like dragging him into the pool even though he's just like wearing his normal clothes. And while they're in the pool like hugging, he also shows her that he got a new tattoo. We learn in book 1 that Alex has these like raven tattoos that are representative of his 6 sisters and his mom, so he has like 7 ravens on his body. He shows Ophelia that a few weeks ago he got an 8th raven, which has a streak of orange because Ophelia is ginger, she's a redhead, so he basically got a tattoo in her honor, which is really sweet. And this is basically where the book ends. Now we have an epilogue, which is 4 years later, and it's Ophelia's 25th birthday. We learn from their conversations that they've moved away from Scotland 2 years prior when they graduated, and they were engaged and they got married as well. We also learned that Alex's mom Elise has passed away. We don't know at which point, but we know that she did. This is Alex's POV, so he really shares about how Ophelia was there for the entire family, all the sisters, while they're going through grief of losing their mom so young. And we also learned that Ophelia is a child grief psychologist, which is exactly what she've always wanted to be career-wise. It's a beautiful happy ending. Everyone lives together forever happy. And yeah, I feel like the second half of the book, hopefully you guys agree with me, was like an emotional roller coaster. There was one thing after another going on, but I think the author did a really good job at like tying together all the loose ends of all the things that were popping up as issues in the first half of the book. We really see Ophelia step up. We also see Alex make a lot more conscious effort towards them being together rather than just you know, complaining about the fact that they're long distance or just giving up on the relationship. Yeah, I wish maybe at the end we would have seen them be together a bit longer, considering they were living at university for 2 years together. I think it would have been amazing to see how that plays out, because I think a lot of this book is like just having heaviness and sadness. And I think it would have been nice to have some moments of lightness and see them finally be fully happy, which we did get that in the epilogue. I just feel like it was just a tiny bit too short. Overall, this was a 5-star read for me. I was obsessed with the way this book ended. I think at the beginning I was like, it's gonna be a 2-3 star read, and then after the 50% mark I was like, no, it's gonna be 4-5 stars. Like, I love this book so much. So thank you so much for being here. If you're still watching at this point, drop me a detective emoji, because Ophelia was a terrible detective in this book, okay? She should be studying how to be a better detective and figure out who her stalker is. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to comment and like and subscribe, because that really helps me out, and I'll see you in my next video.